Evening, Joe.
Yep, good evening. How's it going, Paul? Just,
It is good when it's not 100 degrees.
yeah,
Hey,
tell me. Well, at least it's better today than yesterday.
Amen. Amen to that.
So, it's 6 o'clock now. We'll give it at least another 5 minutes and then, we'll push off, okay?
Sure. It's just me and Ellen tonight, and we'll keep it short since it's
Yeah,
August.
I honestly don't know who from the VAB side is coming. The leadership is, away. So I'm not sure, who will join us from the VAB tonight.
Okay, we'll follow your lead, whatever you need.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, we're gonna start this meeting off in about 1 more minute. We'll give everybody at least another minute or two, and then we'll jump into it, okay? Because I'm not sure. I think this is pretty much the best we might get.
August is always tough.
Yeah, always. I'll be honest with you, as I said in the executive meeting, I don't know why. We're gonna have to discuss this when we reset the calendar for next year.
It makes sense. Maybe you do a double in the fall.
Well, normally we do. In the last couple of years, we have. So it's interesting that we wound up with August, and I'm just like, okay, so. But all right, we'll give it another minute, and then we'll jump off.
Sounds good.
All right, we're gonna jump off. It's 6:07. We're gonna start this meeting now. Let me thank everybody for who's online. I appreciate you all coming on a hot August day. My name is Joe Bello. I am the former secretary of the board. I'm a current member of the board. Unfortunately for this meeting, the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary are not in town. So I'll be running this meeting. I see Paul Dietrich is online with us. He is another board member. Paul, do you want to say anything?
Good to see everyone.
Okay. Like I said, I don't think we have any other members online except for Paul and I. They may join us later, but we'll jump off the meeting now. I also, in looking at the participants, I don't see anybody representing Councilman Holden's office or any elected officials. So I think we'll just move forward to getting into the heart of this meeting. And we'll jump off with DVS giving remarks to everyone. So Paul, the floor is yours. Paul Vallone.
Thank you, Joe. Evening, Paul and the board members. Good evening. It's Paul Vallone, Deputy Commissioner, External Affairs for DVS. I'm also honored to have Ellen Greeley, another one of our assistant commissioners, with us tonight. Joe, want me to just give a couple quick update or just at this point? Okay. So since the last meeting, it's been pretty good events for veterans at this point. You know, today, everyone knows President Biden signed into law our new PACT Act. So it's the first expansion in 30 years for the VA. And I know Commissioner Hendon has been fighting since I've known him for that expansion. I will post the link that President Biden gave the update on the 6 bullets for that. And that should be a good reference for anyone who wants details on the PACT Act. The Memorial Day events were a huge event in New York City. It was the first time returned since 2 years with COVID, and the amount of people and the amount of events that we all covered. And thank you for those who came to the breakfast and some of the parades. As you know, Veterans Day is coming pretty much fast upon us. So we will circulate to the board and about future events for Veterans Day, especially with the breakfast on the mayor. If anyone wants to come with that, that'll be certainly open to everyone that would like to join us. Ellen has had a tremendous summer with her team, with a lot of the community events. I'd like to let Ellen talk about her success with the Build-a-thon and some of the other events that have come on. Even the mayor came and built a few desks with Ellen and the team for our veterans. Ellen, would you like to give an update?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So we successfully have held 3 build-a-thons, and 2 in the Bronx and 1 in Queens. We have another one popping up August 27th at Juniper Valley Park. We certainly invite you to come and join us from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. We have built up until now about 120 foldable wooden tables and lots of stools to give to formerly homeless veterans. We've had an amazing outgrowth of volunteers, Team Red, White, and Blue, Team Rubicon, several VAs, VSOs, VFWs, American Legions have shown up. This is exactly the type of program that is great to do. It helps to reduce the civilian veteran divide, as well as really build camaraderie among all of the veterans. So I must say it was an amazing success. It was supported by a $50,000 grant I wrote from the Penn Fed Foundation. And we also got contributions of a storage unit by U-Haul, and Council Member Holden and Council Member Eric Dinowitz were very involved with getting the word out to their respective communities. So real pleased. They've been, so far we've had 3 sunny days, hot days, but sunny days. And we've gotten to meet a lot of even local civilians who have joined us in many cases. So again, I encourage you all to come on out August 27th, Juniper Valley Park, 80th Street between Juniper Valley Boulevard North and Juniper Valley South to join us. We serve bagels in the morning. We have a stirring emotive speech going on to excite people to join us. And then we follow it up with pizza at our closing.
Thank you, Ellen.
Okay, great.
And Joe, at the last, might have been the last meeting or the meeting before, one of the veterans' daughters had come on and talked about the difficulty she had in getting benefits through the estate for her surviving mom. You know, and that spurred us to some additional meetings that I think have been steps in a huge direction. One of them was with Attorney General Tish James, who was very interested in any abuse of veteran benefits. So I think we kind of themed it as toxic guardianships. In a past life, I almost spent 30 years doing elder law and guardianships. So if veterans obviously are entitled to numerous benefits, as our veteran demographics get older, some of them can be subject to abuse, elder abuse, especially with their financial assets. And Attorney General Tish James is going to look forward to starting a task force for any veterans or families that have been subject to any abuse of their financial assets or difficulty in obtaining their benefits that they're entitled to. Then we met with Melinda Katz, a district attorney for Queens, and she said she'd reach out to some of the other district attorneys to join in. So I was extremely happy with the speed of which the Attorney General and the district attorneys rallied to that. So if anyone tonight or follows up with DVS or the board on any situation with veterans being subject to abuse of their benefits or not entitled, we'll get them in touch with that task force that's coming in. And the last quick note is Queensborough President Donovan Richards has expanded the BRC Center in Borough Hall. And in fact, it's even going to allow for state representatives now that the ID NYC program is closing up there at the Borough Hall. So we're going to double the size of the resource center in Queens. And in June, the budget passed in New York City, and thankfully the DVS budget as well as the council budget. So we thank Councilman Holden as chair and our fellow council members for keeping their $2.875 million budget intact, as well as the city budget still in place for our veterans. So that's a quick update. Jim.
Paul, just a quick feedback on that.
Sure, Paul.
Is Rosemary involved in that? I believe she contacted you about the issue she's having with regards
Yes.
to her brother.
She was the main one. I didn't know if I wanted to reveal her name, but Rosemary was tremendous, and she even allowed us to share her story with Tish James.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, that's great. Is there anything else you wanted to share with us, Paul, or is that, what does it look like? I know you mentioned the Veterans Day Parade and the breakfast. Is there anything
Yeah,
to look forward to?
I'm
coming
happy to
fall?
let you know that we're invigorating the Veterans on Campus program. September 10th, we're inviting all of the student veterans to a barbecue at Fordham University. We hope to have a really wonderful gathering. So that's popping up next. And I'm also in the process of forming a Bronx crisis mapping team. They'll be meeting August 22nd at Bronx Community College, which will consist of medical professionals, mental health professionals, and community agencies to discuss best ways to work together to improve the crisis response for veterans that are in mental health crisis. So that's all popping too.
Hey, Ellen, we're trying to get the veterans group re-going at Staten Island Community also. Mike Matthews is handling that, so might be good to get DVS involved with him also.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll definitely be invited to the barbecue. And I actually just spoke to Mike about it a few minutes ago.
Thank you.
Yeah, Paul, I think that Ellen's program there, it's plush as our fall semesters begin. So if anyone does have an alumni contact or one of their past, even with their maybe children or grandchildren heading out, it would be a perfect time to join that, not only the barbecue, but going forward and hear from our veteran students. And another challenge is once they do finish with their program on whatever college, is obviously trying to hear from them to maintain them. That's our newest challenge. The commissioner is always trying to maintain our veteran students so that we can find cost of life services, affordability for their next step in getting a place to live, job placement, teaming up. And we even have now coming up a looking like a new venture possibly with Northwell Health to work with job placement and careers for veterans. Northwell is one of the largest providers of not only medical care, but job placement for veterans. So they'll be meeting with Ellen and the commissioner and the team to talk about 2022 and beyond with their organization. Hey, Susan.
Okay. All right. No, that's great. All right. So let's open it up to the floor right now. If there's any veteran that wishes to speak or ask a question. I see a couple of hands up. So let's start with, I'm looking at my computer. So I'm going to start with Sam Coates. And then right after him will be Ashton Stewart. So Sam, go ahead. Sam.
Okay, I just unmuted. I
Okay.
got brainstorm. All right, so I'm calling as a veteran and I'm also calling as the Staten Island Vet Center. And I'm gonna bring it out. So the VAB, I know you're dealing with the city and everything and all that, but can the city, DVS, if you're gonna do barbecue, why not do it in every borough? You know, people in Staten Island are not gonna go to Queens. People in the borough is not gonna go to the Bronx. And the Staten Island residents are not getting nothing on this side. And Brooklyn's not going to go to the Bronx. I'm not going to go to Bronx. It takes 2 hours on a train.
It's not in the Bronx, Sam. It's actually at the Lincoln Center campus.
Oh, the Fordham University. No, you didn't say that. You said Fordham University. I'm like, the Bronx. And another thing is the VAB. Can we get involved, the SSVF, the Support Service of Veteran Families? Because the way it's working is if a veteran's coming out of school, they need a job, support services for veteran families, they're not for profits. Their job is to help veterans to get jobs also. I refer them, DVS refers them, state DVS refers them. So is that possible to get them like more involved with the VAB?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think when the leadership comes back before we have our next meeting in October, I think we can all, I can speak to Wendy and certainly Mercedes, and we can ask some of the SSVF providers. I think even DVS can help facilitate that, to have some of the, maybe a couple of the SSVF providers come on and tell us what they do and the process and things like that. So, certainly we can, there's always a standing invitation for them to come, but they are not-for-profit. So certainly we'll have that conversation and try to get them for the October meeting. All right. Okay. Ashton?
Hi, thanks, everybody. Thanks for having the meeting today. And just to continue on the vein of DVS, we had a great meeting the other day with Commissioner Hendon and the state vision leader, Dr. McInerney, excuse me,
McInerney.
and Benjamin Pomerantz as well from the state, talking about the VA and what the current state of affairs is. It was pretty interesting. So hopefully there'll be more collaboration moving forward. It was nice to hear them sharing thoughts and everything. So kudos to DVS for taking part of that. I'll post a link to the video. It's now on YouTube. But also interestingly, the PACT Act, I heard that there's a new component to it that is going to allow for joint action lawsuits against the VA for things like Camp Lejeune cases for leukemia and some of the conditions. So that class action lawsuits will be permitted or something. I don't know the details. I'm certainly not an attorney, but I caught wind of it. So that's pretty exciting to think that there's more opportunity to fight back for things that have happened to veterans and their families that, there hasn't been a lot of responsibility for. So kudos to the government for passing the PACT Act. Happy summer to everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Ash.
Yeah, just real quickly, it's my understanding the Camp Lejeune lawsuit actually started months ago, a while back. And so the law doesn't really affect that lawsuit. That lawsuit can continue to go forward. So we'll have to see where that's gonna go at for now. But it's my understanding that lawsuit, because particularly with the amount of years involved with the water there at Camp Lejeune, that lawsuit's gonna go forward, and the new PACT Act doesn't affect, other than the benefits if they're applying for them, but the class action lawsuit, it doesn't touch it. So
That's
we'll see
great.
what happens moving forward.
That's great. I was talking to a spouse of a veteran who was affected by it, and he's already 100% disabled with the VA, so there's nothing that they can do. However, in the long run, maybe there is. So that's good news for everybody. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, you got it. Anyone else want to have a question or want to bring up a topic?
I'd like to bring up a topic.
Shoot.
I was at a recent Coast Guard event here on Staten Island. And Staten Island, we have pretty much all the Coast Guard members that are in the New York Harbor, which is the largest group of Coast Guardsmen in the country. They're still having difficulty. And to me, this is, it just strikes me. Back in the 80s, when I was in Germany, we used to have trouble with the junior enlisted being able to provide enough food for their children and their families, especially living on the economy in Germany in the 80s. And unfortunately, they're having exactly the same issue now here with junior enlisted Coast Guard men and women living in New York City. And it's simply the cost of living is too high for them to be able to afford to feed their children. So we here with the VSOs on Staten Island are putting together, we've given some funds already out of our hides basically, but we're also going to be collecting various non-perishable foods to give to the food bank they have here on Staten Island that specifically is for those veterans and their families. I don't know if anybody else is seeing the same thing. To me, it's absurd that you have people serving their country who can't feed their children. And as I said, I saw it in Germany. We got around it, and don't tell anybody this, we got around it by inviting the families once a week to the mess hall, dining facility nowadays for those that are politically correct, where there just happened to be food available for the families. course, you're not allowed to do that legally, but we did it anyway because you can't let your family starve.
So Paul, I can offer you a couple of things. We've been involved with the Coast Guard Spouses Club for over 2 years now with respect to giving them food every Wednesday. HelloFresh donates these food kits, and we're quite close to the Coast Guard. They come this moment every other week to pick up food kits for the families, generally somewhere between 50 to 80 food kits for the families. They would probably come every week because they were coming every week, but now with the high cost of gasoline, they're restricting themselves to once every 2 weeks. There might be some opportunity in there if we can identify some transportation mechanism to be able to deliver food to them every week, to be honest with you. I'm sure they would engage in it more regularly if that was the case. So perhaps we can talk about that offline if you'd like.
I'm sure we can find some way to get.
Yeah, if somebody was willing to come to the warehouse in Brooklyn on Wednesdays between 11:30 and noon to supplement, Jamie Biller is the person who comes, or her husband comes once every 2 weeks now. But if we could supplement that with somebody else, perhaps somebody from Tammy's group, from RSVP or something, maybe we could work that out. Again, we would be able to, double the amount of food that we can give to them. It's also an issue, to be honest with you, not only with the Coast Guard. We do give to the Army recruiting battalions every week. A different rotation picks up the food from us. The National Guard. I've, written to the chaplain, who is always a key person in helping for the distribution of it at this moment in time. So those are just some things that we continue to do. We continue to grow the program, but it's a lot. The food is donated by HelloFresh. It's picked up by gratis by the Campaign Against Hunger, and it's packed by Black Vets for Social Justice. And then we have groups coming to the warehouse on Wednesdays in Canarsie to pick up the food kits, just to give you the heads up. If there are other active military personnel that are interested in participating in the program, I'll put my name in the chat so you can contact me.
Yeah, and just let me add in, I know from the Bob Woodruff Foundation, from the Got Your Six event we participated in, I know that it was brought up by the Bob Woodruff Foundation, and they've actually funded, I think, God's Love We Deliver as well for some food for veterans. So I know this is a citywide kind of issue as well.
Yes, it certainly is. We did have a generous grant from Bob Woodruff Foundation, but that ended in December of 2021.
I also think a part of the issue remains the federal base housing allowance, which is so much less here on Staten Island than the rest of the city, because we're, for some reason, combined with Bayonne. It does come up all the time, and it is an issue.
Hey, Joe, what if we were to combine with the VAB to give this as one of the listing priorities for the over 50 council members who have that 3 million now in grant funding?
Oh, the
They
MDIs.
clearly- Yeah, maybe they could, that might be something, sometimes they're just not aware. This could be a perfect way for them to supplement the transportation and food costs and maybe get that immediately up to weekly. If not, at least for this year, but for next year, we could maybe have the VAB, join with DVS, and we give a list of possible, top 5 or 10 throughout the boroughs, ways for the council to join up on existing, not only nonprofit efforts, or just some of the citywide efforts. Because once there's a tangible ask to what can be done, I always found that a better way to get success with individual and with the delegation. Just a thought.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's something to definitely explore and have further conversations with.
Yeah, we could team up.
Certainly with the amount of MDI money and initiative money that's out there, I think certainly we can make that case. I think that's the big issue that, particularly my time in the council has been veterans are not really, unless you're the committee chair, it's not a big priority, like, let's say, reasonably so, like if you're talking about domestic violence or other issues. So, I mean, it's something to definitely put on their radar and definitely explore.
Yeah, I think that would be a great way for us to like jointly present, because each council member has up to 50,000 now for veteran funding. So now we're giving them, a joint citywide list of initiatives, and Ellen's work, she's really single-handedly kept that Hello Fresh food kits. She's on the phone almost every day trying to get drivers and help to that. So she's been really single-handedly keeping that going. But this would be a way to kind of maybe get some assistance. Things to think about.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think it will be important as we're getting that fund, working on that funding or trying to get that done, to have some kind of data to back us up on that as well, about what that need is, particularly if that a certain, whether it's a borough, whether it's a district, whether, any of that. But that's for a conversation as we move forward with this.
Love it.
All right, Sam, I saw your hand up again. Did you want to?
All right, so real quick, for Staten Island, for the Coast Guard, so they do have a program. It's Community Health Action of Staten Island, Chassis. If you let them know, they could do stuff. Also Project Hospitality. But I will say this, it's not New York City. It's all over United States. You got E4s, E3s. E4s, E3s are the lowest paid, like any job. Some of them got 3 or 4 kids. I do have several across America, including Staten Island, that are active duty getting social services. So there is welfare, because remember that the BAH, and just to let somebody, I saw something, the BAH in New York is $3,000 extra according to your pay. So when 2019, when I did my last deployment, if I was an E6, I was bringing home close to 9 every 2 weeks. So I got paid on the 15th and the 31st. So I was bringing home a good, decent amount of money. But if you're stationed in New York, the BAH is $3,000. And if it's a family or certain, 3 or 4, it's based on, hopefully the New York City DVS could get involved, because that's something with, Department of Social Services. So they're the ones that does all the welfare, but they could apply, just to let you know, because I do got some Coast Guards getting some assistance with their food and everything.
But their staff benefits, is that it? And WIC, right? I mean, these are, yeah. I mean, part of it is keying them in also into what other programs are available for them.
It will be great if we could get somebody, let's say, in each borough from social service, like from welfare services, I call it. I know there's a better name for it, but if we could get somebody that could represent the vet, like active duty, it would be great.
Two of
Yeah.
our veteran resource centers are physically going to be situated in HRA offices. Okay, so that helps. And also, a lot of these food programs are available through an application. They're much easier these days, to be honest with you. Yeah. I mean, part of that's been recognized, and I think we're gelling with HRA on that particular issue.
Okay. Yeah, I see a question, just to move on. I see a question, how is the VA addressing the important issue of increasing veteran suicide over the years? Unfortunately for this board, this is a city board. Normally we invite a VA rep, and I don't mean Sam, I mean like a VA rep from the hospitals or from the regional office to attend. Unfortunately, I don't think we have anyone here at this meeting. Certainly it is a very important issue. I know the DVS has told us that they're in the process of obtaining a Dwyer grant for that works with veteran suicide or preventing suicide. So I'm hopeful that for the next meeting in October, if you're back, Terrence, I think it is, Terrence, we could ask that question again, and we'll have somebody from the VA here to answer that.
Yeah, can I just elaborate a
Go
little
ahead.
bit? I think that the VA and SAMHSA, which is the U.S. Substance Abuse Mental Health Administration, have done a remarkable job in making veteran suicide prevention a high priority. And in doing so, we've applied for money from the Staff Sergeant Fox grant. We've have an application in for $351,000 to support 3 additional people to really elevate the expertise and enhance our services of our care coordination unit in our office. Don't know whether we'll get the grant or not, okay? But we're certainly hoping to do that. We recently did a presentation, thanks to Paul and Bianca. We recently did a presentation for the congressional delegation on the grant, and a letter is being circulated. So we're keeping our fingers crossed. It also, additionally, we've created these crisis mapping teams now it'll be in 4 boroughs, and we've really brought the civilian medical community more in touch with the VA. We have some excellent VA representatives that we're working very closely with, so much so that we're getting some of the hospital administrators to call the VA when it has to do with a specific patient. So I think we're all moving and we're all marching in the right direction with this at this point in time, but part of it is also rolling out, like, more Dwyer money to do some of these programs. I mean, I will say that the beauty of even our Build-a-thon was really, again, to demonstrate how necessary the camaraderie is among and needed among the veterans, young and old together.
Real quick.
And one second, real quickly, I also want to bring up we were dealing with this a couple of meetings ago, but I just want to touch upon it. The VA AIR, the commission that was looking to shut down the Brooklyn and Manhattan VA hospital. As I'm sure most of you know, that the commission never got formed. The Senate would not take up bringing in the members that were nominated for that commission. And so the commission never took place. Subsequently, there was no funding for it either. And so it looks like for now, with the exception of the one point in the law where every 4 years, the VA has to make an accounting of their facilities, there's going to be no commission, and it looks like the Manhattan and the Brooklyn VA hospitals are going to stay open for now. So that was a good positive result for those of us here in New York, and I'm sure elsewhere. And but we will keep an eye on it if anything should change. Before I get to you, Sam, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, September 16th, there's going to be at the Brooklyn Public Library, in the morning to the afternoon, there's going to be a whole day dedicated to suicide prevention. Also, just to give you the heads up, that's I'm working on that with the Brooklyn VA as we speak.
Okay.
Just to give you the heads up on that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Before I go back to you, Sam, let me ask if there's anybody else that wants to talk. I want to give everybody an opportunity if they want to ask a question or chime in with anything. Anyone? Susan, go ahead.
I wanted to bring up what I did last meeting again about the occupational issues. If anything has been done on that, and kind of stay on that. There's just, and I've discovered sort of more occupational related barriers that I think are just happening. The EEOC has been forming sort of a little body of cases, and this is a really strange thing, but it's basically from misunderstanding, I think, and poor wording, and just, people just get the nomenclature wrong with veterans and military stuff to begin with. But they're basically moving in a direction, and finally it's culminated in the US Department of Labor saying this very clearly, that veterans have no civil rights. That is what the Department of Labor said in writing and in a decision document. Veterans have no civil rights. And they seem to have conflated the idea that veterans are not a protected class like race, age, sex, disability, etc. In and of itself, veteran is not protected. And sometimes veterans wind up filing EEO complaints and going to EEOC and claiming that they were discriminated against because they're a veteran. USERA has a little provision in it for anti-discrimination, but that's a very limited thing. Otherwise, this isn't really a thing. So there's kind of like two paths here. It would be great to make veteran a protected class. That would be fantastic to say that no one can discriminate against anyone in employment. This certainly could be done by the state. We don't need the federal government to do that. The city could do it. I think there is a provision already.
There is, Susan.
That could be, yeah.
For New York City.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And it could be, you know, so that could, these things that can happen. It would be good to get the federal government to go along with it, because they've now created this sort of two-tier system where if you work for the federal government in New York, and there's a lot of federal employees in New York, between here and Buffalo, there's a lot of federal employees. And if you work for the federal government, you just don't have that protection. So put that aside. The worst thing, though, is that they're saying that the Department of Labor, the United States Department of Labor in New York City, which is the regional office from here to New Jersey, is saying that veterans have no civil rights. That in other words, if you are a veteran, you can't be protected for race or age or disability. Now, given the fact that our population is far more diverse than it was, say, 40 years ago, and also now we've got a whole new batch of disabled veterans, this is a really dangerous thing. And the fact that this is creeping into the federal speak, into their mentality and into their, decision making and their employment decision making is not good whatsoever. And it's got to be stopped. This is not a good thing at all.
Hey, Susan,
So
let me
it's the
just-
department.
Let me just join with you on that. The good thing is New York City, unfortunately, is the only city in the country with DVS as a city agency. But New York State just passed this year the creation of a state agency, and that's where Ben Pomerantz and the team met. So we're hoping the state Veterans Agency gets up by the end of 2023. That will be a huge help in this occupational barrier conversation, because if New York State can lead the way to amend the existing statutory language about protected classes, then the New York delegation can then show that to expand that to some of the other veteran-friendly states and then throughout the country. But those are some of the examples on why having a veteran agency is so important, because then they can take that exact conversation of that dangerous language and the inability to protect veterans, especially with disabilities and seniors, onto a different stage. Because in the city, obviously, we get it, but there's only so much you can do with the city charter versus state language on a federal language. So that's why I'm very happy you bring that up at the meetings, because people are listening. And I think the state agency creation by the end of this year is going to be a huge step in that direction.
That's really good news. That's terrific. And I would, if you need statements or any kind of involvement with it, I would
Always.
love to. I've been an employment lawyer for over 30 years.
Love
So
to,
it's-
yeah, those supportive statements are so definitive when they're attached. And it's those, even at the city council hearings, I know some of the members, and I see Paul and Joe, to come and voice that. Those are public hearings. And I always hope, back when I was in council for years, that more of this group would come to speak. And I know so much of this group does, but if we could spread the word at any of the hearing topics, this is where Councilmember Holden's such a, an asset to have when he comes to these, because he's chair. So maybe this becomes even a topic, right? Because each hearing, they're looking for hearing topics, and we'll be meeting with the council in about a couple of weeks to talk about the remainder of September, October, November, December for hearing topics. And I'll present your idea as one of them. That's why these meetings are so important, just so we could freely talk about these type of ideas and then get them to the legislative branches.
Yeah, there's that. And the other one I referred to, the first thing I referred to was from last time, was the occupational stuff where the licensing, a number of the state licenses have been moved over to allow spouses of military members who are stationed here to have a fast track into getting the licensing for, at this point, I think they've got nursing and medicine in on it. They've got law, they've got, this in teaching. So they've got the major professions, but they don't have it for the service member. They don't have it for the service member if they become a veteran and get stranded here like I did.
Susan,
And-
since you've got 30 years of experience on this, if there's any legislative bill that you want to get to Joe Bello, to myself, and you want us to submit to Chair Holden or anyone else, there's no harm in suggesting a possible amendment or statutory change, especially for veterans. And then we can try to rally the troops, literally, to support that new legislation or amendment. So anytime, if you want to email myself, Commissioner Hendon, Joe, if it's something in your practice that you've seen that maybe another state's doing well or a city, Joe Bello's been doing that for years, flagging some of that and getting it to the council and getting it to the mayor. And now that we have friends on both sides, it's definitely helpful. Just an idea for you if you want it.
Mhm. No, yeah, thank you.
All right, Sam?
Just to put it out there, I put 3 links there for 988. That's the new veteran crisis line number. If you press 1 for suicide prevention, somebody mentioned that. Just to let you know, in the 5 boroughs, the VA suicide prevention has been going to the libraries, to outreach events. I'll be at the outreach events with the suicide prevention staff. So they are going out there, they are showing people, they do have flyers, gun locks, stuff like that, that they're giving out to the veterans in case they need it. Just wanted to put that out there.
All right, thank you. All right, is there anyone else that wants to, yes, go ahead, Paul.
Would it be possible to get an update on the Dwyer situation with this regards to the city for the next meeting? I think that's a very important item. I know that the funds were in the state budget for this year for the city, for each of the boroughs, I believe it was. And it'd be interesting to see how those funds are going to be utilized and exactly what they're going to be put to use for.
Yeah, so
Agreed.
let me just share real quick, at
Soon
the
as we get
executive
those.
meeting, DVS did share with us that
Okay,
they're in the process of obtaining the funding.
okay,
But they're in the process of having a lot of discussions, which they will discuss with us. So I think by the October 19th meeting, they'll probably have more information to give us about that. Am I right, Ellen? By the 19th?
But somebody else is going to tell you about it because I'm going to be in Greece.
Oh, okay, well
Oh,
then.
that's not
by
right,
the
Evelyn,
October
that's not right.
19th
Just telling you a heads up.
Wait, why don't we do
By
the
the
next board
October
meeting in Greece then? I think that.
That sounds like a great idea.
Well, by the October meeting, I believe we'll have more information on where DVS is with Dwyer, the funding and all of that. So we did talk about it, but again, everything is in process right now.
okay. The other item that I had passed to the commissioner was I thought it would be helpful if a referral is made to DVS, if there was some feedback loop to whoever submitted the actual referral. This was handled so-and-so. It doesn't have to, we don't have to get into name specifics, but I think that's an important link back to whoever submitted that referral. This particular veteran needs help. We took care of this in such and such a way. So I had made that suggestion. I have not heard anything back further since then.
We'll follow up on that, Paul.
All right, Paul, we have a question from Dondi McKellar. Will DVS or any agency assist in conversation on cannabis and equitable disbursements of license for veterans? Federal level cannabis is not recognized. At this time, veterans have no platform. Is there anything you want to say or add? I have nothing at this time. I don't know anything really, so.
Yeah, that veteran preference question is across the board, Dondi. I think just having a veteran preference on any of the licensing would be nice to see. I have yet to see that especially on this topic, but that's certainly something, since it's a new licensing requirement coming to the state. I think it's a great idea and we'll happily support it.
Okay, great. All right, is there anyone else that has any questions or anything they want to say?
Yes, I have a
Yes,
question.
Susan.
Yes, Kathy, I have a question. All right, okay.
Go ahead, well, Kathy Dean, go ahead.
Yes, yes.
And then we'll
hi.
go to Susan.
Okay, the city councilors mine happens to be Adrian Adams, because I'm in District 28. Okay, did you say that there is funding that is going to be allotted to each counselor, each city councilor for veterans?
Yeah, Kathy, in each budget, the city council approved again for this year, 2.875 million in totality of the budget. And you divide that down to the 51 council members and they all get an equal slice of that pie. Most of that, I actually have a list for you. Most of that, here's how it gets broken up. Mental health services for veterans is 500,000. Veterans Community Development is 1.2 million. Homeless prevention services is 300,000. Job placement, 200,000. And legal services for veterans, 600,000. And since you mentioned Adrienne Adams, she's the speaker. So they wouldn't have got any of this money if it wasn't for her help. So she was a big advocate. So if you're in her district, she
Yes,
can
I
be,
am.
yeah, it can be very helpful to guiding her on and that district, along with other council members, on to where they can use those allocations within your district.
What would you advise? I can call we have the office, her office is here in our big mall in Rochdale Village. I
Okay,
mean, I can go tomorrow. I mean, what would you advise me to ask?
you could absolutely say you spoke to Joe Bello and I and the board and DVS and said, we'd like to be part of the conversation on how your distribution to veteran VSOs in the district is going to go forward, and if you could participate in that process. I think
Okay.
that's a very simple ask that she'll be happy to oblige to.
All right, dear. I certainly will. And I'll say that the Veterans Advisory Board, I'll be an advocate for the our Veterans Advisory Board. And I'll
Yep.
say it like that.
And
Okay.
then Kathy, I'll leave, Ellen has her email. I'll put mine up too. You can always
Okay.
reference. Adrian's a dear friend. She's a wonderful
Yeah.
speaker, so.
I love Adrienne. We love her.
Yeah, she's great. We love her.
Yeah. I don't know about you guys. We put her in.
Yes, you did.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Okay. All right.
All right. Thank you very much. Susan?
I was just gonna ask, generally, now that the VA is not imminently going away, what's gonna go on now to sort of turn back to watchdogging them? The local services are just, I mean, there's still a lot of problems. They're not, the Mission X stuff is like, forget it. I mean, they're just not doing it.
I
There's
agree.
still a lot of problems getting services, long waits. I mean, the women's services are almost non-existent. That's a joke.
Yep.
Well, I would say this is where we try to invite the VA reps to come. But, we always have to be clear, this is a city board. Just like the city council, when the city council invites a VA representative to come testify and they don't show up, they don't have to show up. And
know.
so, we try to get them here to answer the kind of questions you're asking, or at least give us some information on what's going on. But for the most part, we have no control over what the federal government or what the federal VA does.
But they were right here when they were afraid about losing their jobs.
Well, I mean, the commissioner was able to bring the director of the hospital to kind of talk about what was going on, but that he told us, he basically gave us the same answers we were getting from everybody else. He didn't know what was going on. Decisions were being made in DC. And so he could only give us what he either could give us or what he thought he could give us. So, yeah, but I definitely feel you on that. I mean, my wife is excuse me, my wife is a veteran, and, the services for women vets are not that good. They can be better. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. Certainly the Mission Act. I mean, how much money is being put into the Mission Act in terms of veterans getting services outside of the VA? How fast? I know one of the problems we've had with that is how long does it take to get the payment out from the VA to the private provider? So, I mean, there's still a lot of questions, and, I think us as the board, and I think DVS will try to continue to bring VA representatives, senior representatives here to the meetings to have that kind of discussion.
Thank
I
you.
would
Money for the
recommend-
state. It's money for the city and the state.
I would recommend, though, that you feed back any specifics to the patient advocates. I found them very responsive, and they have fed the information back into the VA system on any of the complaints that I've had. They're readily available at any VA location. Patient
Yeah, no,
advocates.
I do use them, and they can only just tell, all they can do is just tell them, please, is a problem,
I use them
Sam is-
also.
Mm.
Real quick, if you like, so the people that I do know that work for Women's Health in Manhattan and Brooklyn, I could have try to see if they could come in. But if you know somebody that really is going through something, let me know and I give you to them. I'll send them directly to the person. They could talk one-on-one to solve any problems for Brooklyn, Manhattan. That's the only one I got so far.
Sam?
Yeah.
Sam, can you put your email address in the chat again? I appreciate it.
There was a female veteran on last meeting, who was complaining that there were no women's services, and she was being frustrated with it. We can maybe, Paul, I mean, maybe we can, I'd like to be able to find out how many. Find some mechanism. I don't really know. There's no real association around here for women veterans. There's no mechanism to sort of poll us and find out how many of us would say we're having problems getting services. So yours is 1, 2, 3, 4 with your wife.
There is the National Black Women's Veterans Association. So the National Association of Black Women Veterans.
I'm a member of that.
Yep.
I'm a national member and the Brooklyn and the
Yep.
member of the Brooklyn chapter.
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
Kathy, you want to exchange information, want to exchange contact?
Sure,
'Cause-
I'll do it. Let me, I was in the process of using my phone to put down Mr. Ballone's, I certainly will. Give me a minute.
I'm just going to put my email in the chat.
All right.
All right. And I see Sam has also put his email address in the chat as well. So, again, I see we're coming right up on 7. If nobody else has any more questions or comments, I'd like to wrap it up right about here. If that's okay with everyone.
Thank you, Joe. for
Okay.
great week.
Thank
You got it.
And,
And
Oh, gosh.
the next meeting is going to be October 19th. So we have a little bit of time, but it's before Veterans Day. So October 19th, put it on your calendar. That's our next VAB meeting. And that will also be our last public session meeting of the year. We would have had our 5 meetings for the year. And again, we hope to see you all there. Let me thank you all again for coming out tonight, for taking the time. And I look forward to seeing you all out there or in the meeting. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Joe. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Paul.
Have a
Thank
good
you, Ellen.
summer.
Good night.
I'll be in
Thanks.
touch, Paul.
Thanks, Kate. Anytime, Kate.